Thanks very much, Mary, and thank you for inviting me to come and speak. My name is Kathy Bole, and I have kind of interesting connections to much of what Neil has just gone through. First of all, I have been a local county councillor in a council in Suffolk, which is not too far from Norfolk. It was just having problems with trying to overcharge people for their care. I also am the chair of a local coalition of disabled people. I myself have both visible and invisible disabilities, and it comes to I have to disclose some of my disabilities in order to make people understand how I have to look at both sides, both being an advocate, but also being advocated for. I also am the current chair of Disability Labor. I've been with them since 2018, trying to make changes within the party to get them to see how rife ableism is throughout the party. And I'm not going to do labor bashing here. Um, so I think where I'll start with this is that I came to this country over 21 years ago, and I'm considered an acceptable immigrant. That is, that I speak with an American accent that has not gone away. No, it's not South Suffolk. It's my American accent. And because we have American bases near me, my accent isn't objected to. However, I have been privy to the amount of bashing that goes on for immigrants, especially those who come under refugee status. They are not allowed to work. And the incidences of discriminatory violence against people who've come here seeking a safe place, I don't consider, through the last 10 years plus of austerity, they're not getting what they need when they come here. Now, when I came over here, I had a familial disability, which didn't catch up to me until I was already working for the local authority where I live. And I've seen from both sides, because I've been a trade unionist for 30 years, I've seen the kinds of things that different people have tried in order to make things better for people who are disabled. And then I became disabled myself. And I needed to start using, because I have an energy impairment, which means that not that I'm lazy or I'm just tired and I need to get better sleep, but I have an impairment that prevents me from being able to do a lot. And I wanted to continue working and I wasn't able to. Luckily enough, I had a partner who's also gainfully employed, and we were able to make ends meet until I needed the power wheelchair. Fast forward, I became a wheelchair user, and then I started realizing how much more difficult it was to deal with life once I had to disclose that I needed assistance from things like access to work in order to get me equipment. And that's who I got my first wheelchair from, because technically I don't qualify for a wheelchair. But I wouldn't be able to do what I do now and speak to groups and help try to change things. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have some access to benefits of some kind. Now, luckily enough, I don't have to claim universal credit, thank goodness, um, because that's a horror story in itself. Um, it hasn't made things better for disabled people. And I have to say that the DWP, I never had anxiety, although I have PTSD from childhood. I didn't have anxiety until I met the DWP. And I sit here today and I can tell you that the DWP has ruined my life as far as my self-esteem, my self-worth, and I am not alone. I represent 1,200 people, well, 1,600 if I can add up the the disability labor and the charity that I work for, plus having to submit myself to the gross process of trying to find things to find out how I could get some assistance from a PA so that my husband, who has a heart condition, um, doesn't have a heart attack trying to do all of the things that I can't do. So I could probably add some to Neil's book, but I have to say that I thought we couldn't get any worse until I started hearing about the people who had learning difficulties that were put into the community and left to their own devices in many cases. And that caused one young man who had Down syndrome, who was the subject of a major case. They left him to his devices and he would eat whatever he liked, not what was good for him. And he ended up having 22, 22 pounds worth of fecal material removed from his blocked intestines. Unfortunately, that young man died. And his mother probably has PTSD because of the things that she had to go through to try to get him justice. So progressing onwards, then we get towards the B word. And I thought that was going to be bad enough. But of course, I couldn't see what was coming, which was COVID on top of it. And I have heard of people being left in their homes alone with no support, no shopping, the not able to travel on public transport, not being able to get their medications, and worst of all, the fact that Age UK closed down some of the services that he had, and several people had. We created a befriending scheme so that we had somebody who's a volunteer that calls people at home. Age UK closed its offices here. They used to do that through their befriending scheme. And now we're a charity. Our only employee is on furlough, but I have volunteers who have agreed to be calling people in their home under social prescribing for the county. So all of this stuff is leading to things being put on voluntary organizations, which may not survive. And I know this is a tactic because of what I saw when I was a counselor. Now, I was a disabled counselor, and you would think that I would know the ways to get things. And it took them 18 months to get me a consultation with an OT who, when she wrote a care package, it was so disgraceful. I fought. I had to wait 18 months to get somebody to get some social hours. Now that's somebody who knows the system from the backside. And I can talk to people and tap them on the shoulder. Well, at the time I was meeting in meetings. And I often thought, this is ridiculous. If people were aware of the things that they could get, they could pick and choose and get the things that would best benefit them and save the waste that is happening when social workers are making prescribed things for somebody because they're doing it. Um, they're doing it because they have to. Very many of them are not trained now, and they're moving people from parts of the council into another part. Those people are not professionally trained social workers. They're trying to do IT prescribing by putting people back on pressure pads. Although they don't call them that, they are using the what I call axle, because otherwise she'll go off. Um, the thing that you can get that helps you do your shopping and connects you to your family and all of that stuff. So then with COVID and Brexit, we were already afraid of the medicines that might not get through. And I have had reports from around the country that that is the case. And we had DNR, do not resuscitate, orders put on people with learning difficulties when they entered the hospital. The GP surgeries sent them out without warning, and people thought they had to sign them so that if they did get COVID, they were going to be the people who were not meant to survive COVID on, any kind of ventilator, because they only take the people that fit the criteria. God forbid you should be an older person with learning difficulties. So all of that adds up to an unmitigated disaster. And we're seeing now that the NHS wants to sell our stuff to our NHS information. They want to sell it on to people to make up the difference and help the NHS, which is basically privatization by the back door. The NHS website keeps crashing because there's a letter you have to download to object to your data being used. And I don't know what kind of shenanigans are going to go on about that, because of course, John will talk about how people have to go and how they can get legal remedy. And I'll leave that to him, all the legal ramifications, because he knows much better than I do. But all I'll say is that the attrition of disabled people has continued at a pace. We need more advocates like Neil and other people to be able to handhold. And some of us are advocating, but we're hand holding each other. we're calling each other up and saying, look, I can't deal with the DWP for myself because my anxiety gets to me, and then I become a bumbling idiot. So I just have to say that everybody needs to start talking about the NHS thing, that it's privatization through the back door, and that is the number one thing that needs to happen by the 25th of June. You can look at it if you go on to Disability News Service. He has talked about what needs to happen. We need to make sure that people know that this is going to be privatization through the back door. They've already done it with the DWP. Why wouldn't they do it through the NHS as well? And I think at this point, I think I've blathered on more than enough. And please look forward to listening to John. He's an excellent speaker. I've been on a panel with him before, and I think he has some really concrete ideas. So thank you for listening. I hope I haven't bored you.